What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel and another beautiful day here in the RTR F150. But don't worry, we have a really good episode for you today. We're installing the valve cover, the timing cover, and the oil pan on the RTR Spec 2. Alright, so what we're going to try and do before it gets too dark out here is try and put in the windage tray and the oil pickup tube so we can get the oil pan onto the car. For those of you who don't know, the windage tray is a help from getting excess oil splashing back up onto the crankshaft, right? So we have our stud sticking up here. We have a piece somewhere back here. Right here, this is gonna go on top of this. And we're gonna go ahead and tighten that down here in a second, but that is gonna pass through this hole right here that we have in our windage tray. So this is gonna sit in here like so, and then the oil pan will go on top of this. What we have to do is we need to set down the windage tray first, because our pickup tube is going to mount to this and down here. Our pickup tube is going to mount in here to our oil pump. We have a new gasket on here as well that seats down in there. I'm going to go ahead and put a little dab of oil just around there. A little bit in here. There we go. This sits there. And like, oh. Alright, there we go. So then I need to find the bolts for this and try and remember what they looked like. So we got everything torqued down. The spacer that goes to this and this both come in at 19 inch-pounds, which is like 1.5 foot-pounds. Then up here, these two that connect to the actual pump, those are our good old trusty 89 inch-pounds, which comes out to be about 7.5 foot-pounds. So we have this in place. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the oil pan a little bit, and then we'll get that on here. Alright, so I wiped down the oil pan, and as we're looking around here, you'll see that we have these little notches that come off here on the sides and sections around it. Those are going to correspond with... So we have all of our bolts in place. All of these are 10s, except for this one right here, which is a 13. And that houses a nut as well that's going to be used for a ground wire later on the engine. The only thing, of course, we don't have in are these ones here along the front, which are going to be tied in with the timing chain cover. We're going to be waiting until we flip this thing right side up to put all that on. So what we're going to do right now is go through and tighten all these down to 89 inch-pounds and throw a 45-degree angle on it as well. And again, as we all know, 89 inch-pounds turns into what? That's right, 7.4 foot-pounds. Okay, so there we go. Oil pan's all on, everything's torqued down. I don't know if there's a specific bolt pattern, tightening pattern, whatever you want to call it, that goes for this. I went ahead and I did like I did on everything else with the engine, and how Ford did it is where you start from the middle, work your way out. So I would say probably stick with that unless you see otherwise online. But that's what I went with. She's on there, it's in place, everything is good. So I'm going to try and get this thing flipped right side up so that we can make sure everything on the front is tightened up and we'll be good to go. I did all of that without sound. So over here on the table, we have our timing cover. I pulled out all of the gaskets. That way we're ready for the new ones to go in. I have them organized on here the way they came out. That way it's an easy reference for me. And then we also have a new front seal for this as well that we're gonna press this one out and put the new one in. And by press, I mean we're gonna do it the same way that we did the rear main seal. I'm gonna drop a flathead screwdriver in there and pop it out. So I got the new seal popped in there, and I went ahead and sprayed it down with some engine degreaser, and we're gonna clean this up before we pop it onto the engine. So I got this thing cleaned up the best that I could, and I went ahead and dropped in our gaskets. Now when getting these, if you forget which your part numbers are, these are gonna have little notches on them, and they can only go in one position one way. It's at the end of each section of your gasket, so it's pretty much foolproof. Now that we got everything on there, we're gonna go ahead and pop it up front. It's a shame really that the best parts of this engine are gonna be covered up. So let's go ahead and slide this in here. Trying to get it in there. Cover it on the front. Let's go ahead and just pop one of these bolts in here for now to hold her in place. So we're gonna have some bolts that go across the front here at the oil pan, and then everything else going around it. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting all these bolts in. We got the cover on there right now. It's all torqued down to about 15 foot-pounds of torque. So we're gonna go ahead and put our cam sensors on here. This one here goes here. Go ahead, pop that in. And for the other one, it's got a little bit of a nick here on the end. I don't know if you can see that, a little bit. I do have a new one, so I'm going to go ahead and pop that on. We bought one of these when we originally thought this was the problem with the engine. But might as well go ahead and pop it on now since we have it. So here's our nice new clean Duralast sensor. Go ahead and pop this in here. If I had the right size socket, it'd probably work out a little bit better. So I went ahead and I torqued them down to 19 inch-pounds, which comes out to be, what is that, like 1.5. Here is our driver's side timing cover. As I kick the camera all over the place, I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a quick little wipe down, make sure nothing in here is gonna kill our engine. Alright, there we go. And I sprayed down the outside, so what we need to do now is get the gaskets and put them on here. Which one does this one look like? I really should start paying attention to this shit. Alright, this definitely isn't it. Nope, that ain't it. So there's two ways to tell if this is the correct gasket. You can either do the logical thing and check your part numbers, or you can do like I did and throw caution to the wind and freak out and think that you have it on the wrong side. However, there are a couple notches, one right here and one right here. They only fit into those spaces, and it's only on this valve cover. Once you get those lined up, you start pushing it in. It's gonna look a little wavy in spots. It's gonna make you freak out thinking that you did it wrong, but once everything's seated and in place, you start to press it down into the groove, everything fits. So let's go ahead and get this on. There's a section when you look down in here that's got a hole for your dipstick to travel down into. You gotta shimmy that down in there. Get everything in place the way you need to. Line her on up and stop popping it in place. That little pop and that little seat is for the VVT sensors or phasers or whatever you want to call them. It's for the sensors for your cam phasers to go down into place. So this is a 10mm socket that's going to go on here. So I'm going to go ahead and snug all these up, and then we'll torque them down. The passenger side is on. Same deal as with the last one. You have a groove right here and a groove right here that this part of the gasket fits in, and only in those sections, and lines everything up the way you need it to. Let's throw this on and then I can get to the torque. So we got the valve covers on. We got everything torqued down to 7.5 foot-pounds of torque. And we're gonna go ahead and we'll drop in our coils. Don't really need to be in there now, but it'll help fill those holes up. There's no need to have them wide open anyway, so, and it's not gonna hurt anything to put the coils on there. Okay, so we're gonna call it quits right there. In the next episode, we are going to start putting on all our accessories, take apart the car, and get ready to drop the engine in. But until next time, peace.